Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Grieving Voices, which I am highly excited about because I'm a highly sensitive person, and my guest who is joining me is also a highly sensitive person, an empath. If I could find her bio, I will read it for you here in Two Shakes of a Lamb's Tail. Let's go. All right. So Amanda oh, I even practiced this. Pabak, Popovski.
Yes, Popovski. You got it.
Popovski.
Yes.
Amanda Popovski. You got to say it like Popovski.
Yeah,
No?
right. It's Macedonian, so it's very like Eastern European, a lot of conviction.
Popovski.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So now that we've got her name straight, she is a life and business coach for women. And through her Action Awakening process, she's helped dozens of women go from overwhelmed and overthinking to taking brave action and creating discipline that works so they can grow their business and shine. Going from a Spanish degree to forming her own digital marketing agency to climbing the corporate ladder, and finally taking the leap into her coaching business, Amanda has had her fair share of life transitions and has grieved her past self in each and every one of them. She's here today to share more about the sensitive side of coaching and personal development as a highly sensitive person, empath, and overall emotional creature. Based in Buffalo, New York, land of the chicken wing, she enjoys cuddling up with a good book, meditating, and trying new recipes in her free time. And thank you so much for bringing your energy and your story to the podcast today. As we briefly shared with each other before we started recording, I'm excited to have you on because there's a lot of empaths and highly sensitive people that listen to this podcast because I am one and I speak to that. I have content on my website that is about that. And doing energy healing work, that's a lot of the clients that come to me are also highly sensitive themselves. And so I'm really excited to start there in your story of, because I know how shitty my childhood was and the grief that came with it, just being a highly sensitive, empathic person. There were so many pictures of me, and I don't have a lot. Like all of my childhood pictures fit in a sandwich Ziploc bag, and if like this thick of a stack. And so there isn't a lot of pictures of me, but the ones there's a lot of me sleeping
Mm.
rando times of day, like middle of the day, missing birthday parties because I'm fully clothed with my shoes on. I fell asleep on my bed and missed the birthday party. And, so I'm curious to start there with your story and how, what your childhood was like being an empath and highly sensitive person.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, obviously, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really, really excited to talk to you and to hopefully share some wisdom that I've gained in this process for your HSPs and your empaths. My childhood, it's funny, I work with my inner child a lot, but I don't really reflect on my childhood too often. And I've noticed with other highly sensitive people that sometimes we just can't remember. Like there's maybe some emotional overload or something that we're just like, oh yeah, my childhood was good, and then move on to present day. At least that's how I operate. But I very distinctly remember feeling super different from a young age, like deep down knowing that I was different and not really knowing what to do with that information. Like I can distinctly remember being in student council and drama club and like doing all the things in high school. And even though I felt like I had a group of friends and I felt like I belonged somewhere, I still felt like I did not belong. Like I was this old soul, this indigo child, this person that was just really doing a lot of observing and picking up on things. I do remember kind of a super cool trick that empaths have is to be able to read between the lines and understand what people are saying without saying it. So my parents would be like in an argument or whatever, passive aggressive at each other. And in my head, I was like, it's so obvious. Dad wants this and mom wants this. Why aren't they telling each other? And It wasn't until recently that I started to use my throat chakra and actually start to speak out loud about these feelings and sensations that I had. And that's kind of what coincided with the whole like food thing that we're going to hopefully talk about, PMDD, all of that. So I would say that my experience was lonely. It was, I found a lot of solace in myself. I found a lot of solace in my books. I found a lot of solace, like rolling these huge ideas around in my head that no child probably should ever have to think about or want to think about the state of the world and why things are the way that they are. And for a long time, I saw my empathy as like this burden. Like I would speak to the universe very often, especially in my early 20s, and be like shouting at the moon, like, why did you make me this way? I can't stand it. Why can't I just be normal? Why do I have to be different? Now, luckily, I and you, I'm sure, have come to embrace the superpowers that empathy and high sensitivity gives you, but only with the introduction of very strong boundaries.
I thought you were gonna use the word that I use, like empathy, like being a highly sensitive person, empathic is a curse because I felt
Mm.
like it was a curse for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How so?
It's like, why do I have to feel things so deeply
Mm,
all the time? And
mm.
it makes people perceive you as neurotic. Like, I
Oh, yeah.
feel like people would like, why are you so sensitive? And just get over it. And why do you read into things? It's like reading between the lines, but it's like, it's no, this, like, I know now I'm not reading into things. I'm reading between the lines. I'm connecting dots that you're not seeing. But it comes off to other people as um, not insightful. We
Mm-mm.
don't come off as insightful and wise. So yeah, it was definitely a curse. And it was like, yeah, why do I have to be this way? So yeah, like kindred spirits. Yes,
Mhm.
very much.
I I super resonate with that actually, especially with PMDD, which is the experience, it's called premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. And it's basically PMS on steroids, where the week before your period, you just feel like a completely different person. Like I'm a bubbly person, I'm a happy person, but on the inside, it's a little bit of torture. And so I can really relate to feeling super emotional all the time and having people not really understand. And even in my relationships, currently, sometimes it feels difficult to be like, how are you not experiencing all of the things that I'm experiencing? And what I love about what you said is that we're reading between the lines, yes, but we're reading the energy, really, is what
Hmm.
we're reading. And that's the stuff that most people think is between the lines or can't really perceive. But we have this beautiful gift of being able to read and interpret a language that is really the whole creative spirit of the universe. It's really cool. It's a blessing. I think after all this time, I do
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
a
In
blessing.
hindsight, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
after we've implemented boundaries, right, which we will get to,
Mm,
but I just want to share just because it's at the forefront of my mind when you talked about PMDD, because I haven't been personally diagnosed with that, but just how you described it, like, oh, yeah, maybe that's been my issue.
mhm.
And because I would just turn into this like, ooh, anger, snappy, brain fog, like all these things. But I'm going to share something with you because I'm like in the perimenopause, and that just adds another layer to things, right? But I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Stacy Sims on Huberman Lab, and it's an excellent episode on perimenopause and menopausal women in health and fitness and all of that. And one thing that she suggested or shared with listeners was a supplement called DIM, 200 milligrams a day. And I thought, you know what the heck, I'll try it. It's especially helpful for women who are estrogen dominant. And I have been on this now. I have not shared publicly in my newsletter, which I plan to this next newsletter, because I wanted to give it a full month. I've been on it a full month, and they are legitly a game changer. Have been for me. Yes. It's like, and it's literally like a crap ton of broccoli and cauliflower in a little pill. It's holistic, it's natural, but it helps your body excrete excess estrogen. And I tell you what, I've been more productive in this past month than I have in several months. And my mood, definitely my mood, they are my happy pills. Legitly, they are my happy pills. This is not a sponsorship episode. This is not an affiliation or anything. I'm legitly sharing what has been the biggest game changer for me. I am ever so grateful for her for sharing that. I've shared it with my friends, people that I know and love, who what it's working for me, and it's definitely really helped me. And this is after like going through a cycle now, and another, yeah, so it's been a full month, and I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
Oh yeah.
So
Any little bit helps, I think, but
yes.
especially that it's natural. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful.
I know. I know. Yeah. So anyway, not to derail what you were talking about, but yes, it's like all these different layers of and then you get to that perimenopause, menopause, and it's like, whew, as a highly sensitive person, buckle
Mm.
up.
So I've heard. So I've heard.
Yeah. So how did, like, now as an adult, like, what did how did the boundaries come about for you then? And how did that then shift dynamics in relationships? Because I know what implementing boundaries did to some of my relationships, which it can, friends just really kind of fade into the background when you start to use your throat chakra, right?
Ah.
And speaking up and using your voice for the first time, often, because as empaths and highly sensitive people, we're often taken advantage of.
Mm.
um, our emotionally responsive energies can, people, not everybody can sit with people in their
Mm.
deepest pain. And so we are very good at that, but it can also be very draining on us if we're not looking at our own energy and managing our own energy. And energy healing work has been huge for me in that regard, as well as boundaries. So, what did that look like for you?
Mm. Well, the first thing that came to my mind while you were talking about this is that as empaths, we are chameleons. So if anybody is not an empath, basically what it means is that what the other person is feeling, you viscerally feel in your body. It's like they're kind of their energy overtakes your energy. You're kind of thinking what they're thinking, you're feeling what they're feeling. And in hindsight, I think the power of us is not to be chameleons, but to be like a gazelle, like something
Mm.
beautiful that's sitting there peacefully listening, but then goes around and traipses around really beautifully and like sends their sparkles everywhere. So my chameleoning really came to an end or was highly influenced by the first self-help book I ever read, which was You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And it actually kickstarted my entire coaching career and everything that I would go on to do. But something in me clicked, and I realized that I had a purpose that was so much greater than like a 9 to 5 or a box or something. And I was like, yeah, I'm made for more. And that's really important to me. And I need to figure out what the heck that more is in my lifetime. So I started the self-development journey, as I'm sure many of your people are on. And I had always heard the word boundaries. They sounded kind of harsh to me. They sounded like something that only highly aggressive or action takeny people would set. I was like, I don't need to set boundaries, whatever. But I noticed that the more that I tuned into the fact that I was an energetic channel and that sometimes that energy did not make me feel good, I was like, no, 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 I can't be a part of that because I have a big purpose. So it was less about, over time, it has become less about hurting other people's feelings and more seeing boundaries as a sign of self respect and reflecting on the fact that boundaried people, resourced people in my life are some of the coolest people that I look up to so much. And recognizing that when they set a boundary with me, I feel safe. And when I set a boundary with someone else, as difficult as it is, I feel safe too. So it's funny you bring up friends because I remember the first major friend breakup I had was so painful for me. It was so hard. I leaned into the self development books. I was like, okay, yeah, this person is an energy vampire. I got to get him out, blah, blah, blah. But then to sit down and have that conversation, again, it's like that person's energy overtakes your body. And so, what I had to learn to do really was follow my intuition very deeply. And if my intuition, that little voice in the back of my head was still like, you gotta let her go, then I would follow through on that and trust that I was held in that decision. Trying to think of the first time that I set a boundary and what that might have been or felt like. Yeah, the first time I set a boundary was actually breaking up with my boyfriend very shortly after I read that self development book. And on paper, he was perfect. Our relationship was perfect. But I remember feeling energetically in my body like, this isn't right. I don't think I want to be with him. I don't think I'm going to marry him long term. Um, and so I've noticed that once I've set those boundaries with people and with things in my life, like food, social media, all of these things, I'm a better person, which makes the people that stick around so much better because my energy is so golden and nourishing, like you said, to the people around me. In order for me to be the best Amanda for me and for others, I need to have some really strong, energetic containers around me so that I don't fizzle out. Because, especially if any of your listeners or you know about work burnout or corporate burnout, it is the worst feeling. And once you experience it, then you're like, oh God, I got to set some boundaries, but I don't really know how. And so I have this like micro action awakening process. Do you mind if I share it with your listeners?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is really great for empaths because it's a micro action awakening process. So when you're looking to take a brave action in the moment, which in this case is setting a boundary. So do you have an example, Victoria, of like a boundary that your listener might want to set with someone?
When others are not seeing you in your glory, when they're
Mm.
seeing the you that you used to be. So as you're evolutionizing yourself, as you're evolving in your own growth, and the people around you are not growing themselves, and you go into that environment.
Oh, okay. Before I share this process, I need to share some quick backstory on this because, like I said, I started life coaching. I don't know if I mentioned, but I was in college and I was a straight A 4.0 student and I decided to drop out. And my family did not see that coming. They did not appreciate my ambition. They thought that I was making a huge mistake and they did not hold back from expressing their opinions on that. And one family member in particular said that I was crazy and that I should go to a mental hospital if I was really considering this decision. And I believed them. I believed them for a really long time because I was super young and I wasn't established in my boundaries yet. And so I shifted away from coaching, like you mentioned, went to digital marketing, corporate, always danced around this idea of helping people. But it wasn't until I really confronted and faced those family members and said, you know what? This is my purpose. This is what I want to do. I know, I believe you. when you say that you think I'm crazy. I totally believe that you think that, but I don't. And I like my decisions. I like the choices that I'm making. It's not because I'm crazy. It's just because I'm first in my community to do that, which is a concept from Jamie Kern Lima in her book Worthy. So I
Mm.
have so many good things to say about this, especially when it comes to close family members, about them not seeing you in your glory, seeing you still as a young woman, maybe, still seeing you as their daughter, as their sister, as their niece, and feeling like they have the right to protect you and make you feel safe by sharing and smudging their fears all over you. So, to this person who is stepping into their glory and their purpose that is so deeply needed on this planet, this microaction awakening process will hopefully be really helpful for you to set a boundary of I'm imagining that someone is starting to say to you, but that's not, and then the brave action is for you to set a boundary vocally. The cool thing about the throat chakra is that it's the connector between your head chakras and your body chakras. So, like, your mind may be racing, but your body knows exactly what to say, and it's just got to bubble up from your throat. So, the first step is you're in this conversation with this person, and they start running their mouth in ways that are not helpful to you. What I want you to do is take a deep breath. Okay. And what that does is not only does it ground you in the moment, but it also interrupts any neural pathway that is going in your brain that says, I shouldn't talk back to them, right? It's just interrupting that pattern. And even if you do that for a week, you're starting to interrupt that neural pattern, and eventually you'll be able to crack it and introduce something else in its place. So when we are in these moments and feeling really nervous, take a deep breath. And what I want you to do is think about your future self and or the version of you that is fully living in this glory. You could consider that. You can consider your higher self if you're a bit more woo like me. Or you can just think of somebody that's really brave and boundaried and someone that you want to be like. And just consider what they would do in this situation. That's not only going to break the neural pathway even further, but it's going to connect you to a positive and long-term person. Because so often we don't speak our minds because we're afraid of the short-term discomfort. But discomfort and any emotion, it never killed you. And it's so much more important for you to speak your mind for that long-term version than it is for you to continue to sit in wrong energy. So, okay, we've taken a breath. We've thought about the most badass, sparkliest version of ourselves and what they would do in this situation. And then we count down from 5. And this is a Mel Robbins tactic. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? And then we do the thing. We take the brave action, we say the boundary. And the last part of this process is that when you take the brave action, I'm sure a lot of your folks are people pleasers, maybe perfectionistic to a fault. We want to do a B- brave action rather than waiting for an A+. So even if you stutter your words and you're like, wait, stop, and if you think you sound like a child or whatever dynamic this person is with you, that's going to come up and you're going to feel your palms shaking and you're going to feel your feet tingling and sweating. But if someone is not supporting you in your glorious purpose, and you continue to allow their opinion to influence you, you're choosing other people and their opinions over your purpose. And that's not good for anyone. And again, discomfort, it sucks, but it's never going to kill you. So basically, take a deep breath, consider this future version of yourself, push through the short-term discomfort, and take the action of setting that boundary so that you can at least start to feel free in yourself and help the people that you're really meant to help in this lifetime.
To piggyback that, I think it's important to be to have emotional honesty in whatever it is you articulate to,
Mhm.
not twist it in a way that the other person maybe you think needs to hear it, or how do I want to say that? Um, just what's true for you, not what you think the other person needs you to say, or, don't mince the words. Say, be impeccable with your word, basically. Yeah.
For agreements.
Yeah. For agreements. Um,
And to piggyback off of your piggyback, so now we're piggybacking on piggyback. Um, a book that I think will be super helpful when it comes to boundaries is The Book of Boundaries by Melissa Urban. And she's the founder of Whole30, but she's also a rollicking badass. And she makes boundaries so accessible. She provides concrete examples of things you can say. One of the best things that I learned from that book is to be clear but kind, or to be, no, clear is kind.
mm.
Clear is kind. So if you're hopping around your emotional truth, like you said, that's not kind to them or to you. And so as long as you are super clear, you are going to feel a lot better about that situation than if you were just kind of like, yeah, that wavering kind of emotionality.
So it's called The Book of Boundaries.
The Book of Boundaries. Yeah.
There's another book. The one that I read was called Boundaries by
Ooh.
two male doctors.
Yeah.
But that one was, I mean, that covers a whole lot of scenarios too. So if you want, whether a feminine spin or the male version, there's two books there that we each of us recommend. Um, I have not read The Book of Boundaries, but I have a feeling the show notes are going to be a lot of recommendations here,
I
which is
know.
great. This is like, this is like a personal development self-help masterclass for
Hell
empaths and highly
yeah.
sensitive people. So go us.
I have a question for you, Victoria. As an as a highly sensitive person as an empath, why do you think, like, I can picture a lot of people listening to this and being like, yeah, yeah, boundaries are fine. But why do you think that they're really important? Like, how are they life-changing to people like us?
If they are aligned with your values, they are your guidepost for navigating life. As long as you're clear on what your values are, which may or may not be reciprocal, right? Because values can be internal. Like I value growth, but I don't expect other people to value growth, right? But if I value honesty, I expect honesty from others. I expect honesty to be reciprocal.
Mhm.
And so if someone is not being honest with me, there's my boundary, right? So I think our values inform our boundaries. So if you can get clear on your values, you know exactly where your boundaries are missing.
Mm.
And if you get confronted with a boundary from someone else that feels activating within you, there's something there for you to look at within yourself. I had once someone, just a simple, this was a really clear example of a boundary. It's explicitly outlined in her email message responder. I do not reply to messages between blah, 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 whatever it was. And I thought, wow. And she had like this way to articulate it in the message too. Like, I respect my inbox. You don't need permission to respect your own, but it's someone who's setting an example of what a healthy boundary looks like, right? And I thought, wow, that's really awesome. I love that. And so when we get confronted with other people's boundaries, sometimes we wouldn't know a boundary if it slapped us in the face. But if, as an empath or highly sensitive person, you can feel yourself energetically responding to that, it can help shape and mold your own, right? And by looking at yourself and self-reflection and all of that. So they're so important just for navigating life, I think.
Mhm. Mm. I completely agree with that. And to take a bit of a more woo spin, because that's just my whole thing, I think when I often say that when we're procrastinating or overthinking or whatever, and we don't take the brave action in our life or business, it's you're you're not just hurting your productivity, you're actively tearing at your self-relationship. You're disappointing yourself again and again. And so when you don't set boundaries, you're not protecting yourself. And that indicates to me that your perception of your own value is extremely low. And that's really sad if the majority of the world feels that their own value is not even worth speaking up about or not even worth protecting because your energy, when you're an empath, naturally unboundaried in a bad way, is bleeding out all over the place. You're everywhere. You're feeling everything. You're inheriting and inhaling the vibrations of everything around you, especially in crowds. My God, I don't know
Mm.
about you, but I'm like crowd phobic. I can't do it. I'm a homebody for sure. But if I'm sacrificing my own value and values for someone else, I'm telling everyone, I'm making a proclamation that I don't value myself or my purpose or the goldenness of my energy because we empaths, we have such a gift with our energy, and everyone's energy is so unique and beautiful and worth protecting that even thinking about this listener that is stepping into their glory but isn't able to set those boundaries, I just want to give them a hug and be like, hey, you are super valuable. And it's about time that you saw it for yourself and started to really speak up. And I love what you said about being confronted by other people's boundaries too. And how when someone sets a boundary that we don't like, all of a sudden we have the clarity of insight of like, oh crap, yeah, I get it. I do respect that person for setting the boundary, but it can hurt sometimes. And that's okay. Like that has to be okay in a world where we respect ourselves and others in equal, if not slightly skewed measure.
The pendulum can also swing way the other side, right? Like where we create boundaries to keep people out and to
Mm,
isolate
mm,
and to give ourselves a pass for not leaning into our energetic bigness, right? Are you familiar with human design? I bet you are.
oh, girl, what are you? I'm a generator.
Manifester.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm a
very
double
cool.
whammy. For anyone listening, it's a double whammy as an empath or a highly sensitive person to either be a projector or a manifester.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Because we generators, we're here to work. We're here to build, legacies and our work here. But as a manifester, no, projectors wait for the invitation, right? So what is your strategy?
To inform
Oh,
and
you're boundarying all over the place.
initiating. Like I'm here to initiate others. And so that's created a lot of grief in my life. Like people feel my energy before they encounter me. And I've always, and when I learned about the repelling aura that a manifester can have, I'm like, huh, no wonder. Like reflecting on my life, like, no wonder I felt rejection over and over and over throughout my life. Like, rejection is huge for a manifester. And as a generator, you can easily be taken advantage of. Your
Mm,
energy can easily be taken advantage of, which is so highly important for generators and manifesting generators alike to have boundaries right around their energy because you really have to be lit up as a generator to what you're giving your energy to.
yes.
And that's how
Yeah.
you burn out. And I
Yeah.
burn out by by, well, kind of the same thing, you know, because manifesting generators and manifesting generators have a little bit of manifester in them, right? Obviously, but um, I have to put my energy into initiating and creating things. And if and the, being able to initiate people in the work that I do, especially, um, I have recognized just in because I've only been really playing around with my own experiment in the last year. But it's been huge for relationships, in recognizing why things went the way they did, why friendships faded. Um, it's helped me be to come to acceptance, I think, more readily, just by recognizing that, oh yeah, I initiated that. Like I started to use my throat chakra, right? Which many manifestors have been taught to, really shrink down. So yeah, it's huge for, like, this podcast has been huge for my throat
Mm.
chakra, huge for my throat chakra.
Mm.
But anyway, this is not about me. So
But
let
isn't
me,
it?
no, I know. But I think it's great conversation for anyone listening to, in
Yeah.
respect to being an empath or highly sensitive person and blending in human design. I think it's I'm gonna, put that in the show notes too. And I have many times because I've sprinkled it in throughout many episodes.
Yeah.
But how has human design helped you as an empath and highly sensitive person, as a generator?
Oh, good grief. It's been a total game changer. It Human design, I don't know how it works. I don't
Mm,
know why it works. Sometimes it makes me so mad that it does work because I'm like, this can't be real. I can't be so connected to something that I have no idea where it came from or who made it. It has
manifester,
helped me.
actually.
Yeah. Exactly. It has helped me understand that my energy is worth protecting, that I do need to value my purpose and the work that I do, and that I need, like, Mandy needs to be feeling good in order to create her purpose, because that's the life thread, this golden thread that a generator pulls from is their own, I'm an emotional authority. So if I'm, oh hell yeah, okay, cool, you are too. So if my emotions ain't happy, then like no one's happy. I'm affecting the emotions of everyone around me. When I'm in a mood, everyone can feel it. And part of that is empath, but the other part of it is that it's my authority. It's how I author my life is through my emotions and feeling good and vibrant and excited. That's really what led me to the decision to leave corporate, is that I thought that I really wanted to leave corporate once I matched my income with my business. But then someone like a financial advisor was like, "Okay, yeah, we can look into and project if you're there for 1 year, for 2 more years, for 3 more years." And I felt it. I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. That's not going to be happening. I am probably going to leave." And I did a lot of intuition, worked a lot with my mindset, things that coaches do, and got to a place where I was able to leave. That was a month and a half ago, and I have never experienced more success personally, professionally, and like vibrant feelings. It's like I took a dim, like 1,000 milligrams. It feels amazing because I'm really where I'm meant to be. So that was a huge boundary for me to set with myself, with my employers, with my family who might not understand, and with the universe of being like, I'm ready to go big. Let's do it. Let's see what's on the other side.
Oof, I just got like truth bumps. So
Ooh.
what did that, I mean, oh, you know, I have a day job.
Oh, you do?
I do. I'm
Okay.
in corporate and I don't talk about it much. And where I struggle is And I'm only sharing this because I think it would be helpful for listeners too, because I don't talk about it a lot. And it's
Mhm.
not that is it my passion? No, because my passion is being of service in this way of energy healing work and grief work and all of that. Um, but it's what it allows me to do,
Mm.
because I do have a lot of freedom in it, and I do have a lot of flexibility, and it kind of checks a lot of boxes for me, and it does
Mm.
provide safety and security, right? And
Mm.
I do have a family, and I cover the insurance. I have a
Mm.
lot of layers to a decision like that. But it if I would not I would be lying if I say I do not think about that day when I can cut the umbilical cord. You know what I mean? And so
Mm.
when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like heaven. To do, and as a manifester, to do what I want when I want, like, it is the ultimate living in alignment, right? And so it's like I feel like this constant push and pull.
Yeah.
And my energy, right, is constantly like, I have 3 kids, and, one's in college and one is, like, taking college classes, and the other one is starting to take college classes too, and they're still in high school, but one's graduating this year, and so I'm at that age of, like, well, in 3 years, I'm gonna be an empty nester, and whoa, like, that's just crazy to me,
Mm.
and so I'm kind of getting to this, it's like, waiting for my ship to come in, right? And taking that leap of faith into the damn ocean, and with a life preserver, and know that I'm being held, right? So
Yeah.
please speak to that a little bit more if you could, please, because
Oh,
not
yes.
only help me, but anyone listening, I'm sure.
Okay, yes, beautiful. So the bio that you gave is what I filled out when I filled out the application, but it's actually changed. I've
Oh,
changed
I
it
forgot
to
to ask you that.
that's
Thank you.
A-okay, that's
Okay.
A-okay. What I do now is still a life and business coach for women, but I help them play bigger, tap into their limitless potential, like, I'm still articulating the messaging around it, but it's really about that, about leap of faith, trusting in the universe, how do we manifest all of those things? So this is very topical and top of mind. That leap of faith that I took was the week before I decided to do it. I had plans, grand plans to do it in June, and I didn't do it in June. And it felt okay to me. I was like, okay, well, I'm just like working on my business on the side. And then come June, I started to notice that when I walked into the office, I started to get anxious. I started to feel my body, like my soul leaving my body. But I
Mm.
still denied it. I was like, oh god, it's so scary. I'm not ready. I had 0 clients at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to do this yet. But the feeling in my body persisted, and I started to worry and ruminate. And then I got to a point where I was doing like a card reading or something, and I pulled the card yes. And it just says yes. And it says yes, 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 all over it. And it was at that point that I was like, I could leave my job. And I just kind of let that sit in the air. And as a generator, we respond, right? So I said that and I waited for my response. And the response was like, yeah, soon, probably. You will be leaving. The real thing that tipped me off was that I had set some 3-month goals that took me to October. And it was for 8 clients or something. And one of my sucky thoughts, as I call them, one of my obstacles was like, I can't make that work with corporate. And the universe was like, you won't have to. I was like, oh my gosh. So when you're making a decision like that, it is imperative that you continue to listen to the universe and heed its call, because your mind is going to be like, yeah, I can leave whenever. I'm a badass. But if the universe keeps saying soon, 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 like it did to me, and you rebel and you're like, what the hell? Like, I'm ready now. Why aren't you letting me leave? It really takes a sense of release and surrender to be like, I know that in the right time, at the right moment, I will be able to leave. It was terrifying. The week before I decided to put in my 2 weeks, I was a mess. My mind was all over the place. It was like, "What are you doing? Here are all the reasons." It, like, rolled out the scroll, and it was like, "Hey, here are all the reasons that you should not be doing this." But I just continued to listen to that voice in the back of my head that was like, "You're gonna do this." And I trusted that whatever was on the other side was so much better than what I was going through at that time. And my job in corporate was the least corporate job. I worked at a startup. It was all young and fun and hip. But in the end, I just had this feeling that as I was leaving, that I wouldn't regret it. And I had to really lean into faith, like you said, and also lean into my body to make sure that everything was still feeling good in the core, at its core. And it did. And I left with a bang. I threw everyone a taco party and I gave them a presentation about what I learned, and I made them cookies, and I just like made it the biggest celebration of all time. And then I signed my first five-figure client like within 3 weeks. Thank you. Little bow, little bow. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't listened to my energy. I think as empaths, we have this really incredible ability to be highly sensitive, not only to other people, but once we set those boundaries, we start to gain like master level sensitivity to ourselves and our intuitions and our next steps. And it's such a beautiful gift.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
And what came up for me was I'm not there yet. Like
Mm.
it's like this, yeah, I know someday, but it's not like this pit in my stomach. I don't mind what I do, right?
Right.
I don't Would I rather be doing something else? Yeah. But it's not like this visceral
Mm.
response. Like when I was with a different company, that was visceral. Like,
Mm.
I'm in a much better environment doing the same work, but I'm in a much better environment now. And so for an empath or highly sensitive person, our environment really matters, that we hold, the container that we have ourselves in, where we work. Our environment is really matters. And that's our home environment. That's where we work, where we choose to play. I think that's understated. I don't know why. Like that just came to me right now to share that.
Mm.
And so I feel like my environment is supportive right
Mm.
now. And that's probably why I've not had this visceral experience to like cut the cord right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that you said that about the environment because our boundaries with people are important, and so are our boundaries with inanimate objects, concepts, things like that. Like screen time. I'm super sensitive to screen time. I'm super sensitive to the food that I eat. I'm very sensitive to like watching TV at night. I know what rituals are going to make me feel like, ooh, return to my body and my environment. My favorite place is my room. I love to be in my room. That's like where I recharge. And I think for an empath or highly sensitive person, finding that place that feels rejuvenative to you can be such a rewarding and deeply nourishing process.
I was just reflecting this morning on my sleep last night because I wear a Garmin and it tells me like my sleep score, and it was it was really poor last night, and it showed my stress level because it uses heart rate variability, and
Mm.
it like my stress, I can definitely when I drink alcohol, which isn't often, but when I do, my stress level at night, like my sleep is not great. It's horrible.
Oh.
And even if I just have one or two, like it really affects my sleep. And um, my stress level is higher. And I ate last night late, later than typical, like around 8 o'clock. I usually don't eat that late. And I don't know if that's why. There's other things going on with someone I care about. So it's like, is that why? But it's like, again, it's like what's happening within my body that did cause me not to have this rejuvenative rested sleep. And I was in bed for over 9 hours, but and I,
Mm.
it said I slept like over 7, but it wasn't restful and it wasn't rejuvenating. And so I would just encourage people too, like to your point about food and sensitivities and things like that. Like if you're sleeping like crap, just kind of keep a journal and keep track of
Mm.
what, for like a good 2 weeks to see how things are affecting you and impacting you, because that's how you connect the dots. And that's it. It's just data, right? I think it's
Mm.
so important for us as highly sensitive people to kind of take ownership of our energy in that way and track and find these data points that are blatantly clear if we just attend to them, right?
Yeah, and what that brought up for me was, grief of the normal for highly sensitive people.
Mm,
So, like, my boyfriend, for example, is the most normal person I've ever met. He loves pizza and beer and video games. He loves football on Sundays. He goes to family parties, like all these different things. I think when you're highly sensitive, you start to set boundaries, you start to move into your purpose. There is this grieving of, why can't I be normal? Like
mm.
I I wish in some ways that I enjoyed a glass of wine because I think it's so chic and cool, but I get like really sleepy and I get a headache, so I'm like, no, no, that's not for me. I have very recently been playing with nutrition and what really nourishes the body, like an anti-inflammatory diet. And so I know now that sugar, gluten, corn, peanut butter, peanut butter, all of these things, like they don't make me feel good, and it is actively hurting my body when I eat them. And it was such as much as it was a process of releasing those foods, it was a process of releasing the person that can just go to a restaurant and order like a turkey club, right? Or a person that can just go out on a Friday night and like party it up, at a club or whatever. But when you're different like us, I feel like there's real room for you. This listener, for example, that is stepping into her purpose and everyone around her is like, what the fuck? Can I swear?
Yeah, it's already explicit. I swore.
Okay. Great. Okay, good. Um, Everyone around her who's like, "What's going on?" Like, they're basically asking her, "Why aren't you normal?"
Mm,
And it's really critical, I think, for us during these transitions to take that time and grieve who we were, the ideal daughter, family member, restaurant attender, right? The ideal student, whatever, when we have these divergences in what is considered normal in society, that grief is something that I don't think we talk about enough. It's like grieving the person that was compliant, the woman that did play small. Those are big concepts, deeply rooted concepts. And what's beautiful is that on the other side of that grief is real power to step into that process. But sometimes there's an ugly in between of like being the goop in the butterfly chrysalis before it becomes that butterfly.
I love that metaphor.
Mm.
Also, I think when it comes to nutrition, I think that's been huge too for me, with my human design, because the digestion piece, because I had tried this, eating 156 grams of protein and over 2,000
Oh my
calories.
goodness.
And I was like, I felt so heavy.
Yeah.
And after a week of like trying to making sure I got my over 10,000 steps and doing these intense workouts and eating so much food. I never felt so horrible after a week. And I'm
Mm.
like, this is
Mhm.
not for me. I
Mm.
completely found something that has now. I'm at a I'm at a calorie count that feels doable, manageable, typical, like normal for me. I don't feel weighed down. I feel lighter. I have more energy, actually. It's really ironic. I'm lifting more. I'm moving more weight. My age after 3 weeks on my health fitness age has decreased by
No.
3 years. Yes. So I'm like, I'm aligned now. And it's more of like, I should be more of a grazer and more like not such heavy meals and, you know, not this 3 square meals a day and eating so much. And there you go. I had my big meal last night before bed. Like, duh.
Oh my
Like,
god,
duh. I ate
you
too much.
solved it.
I solved it. I ate too much. And I kind of knew that. Like, why am I eating before? Yeah. See, here's a lesson for y'all. Like, learn your human design, learn
Yeah,
about your digestion, do your body a favor, take
and
some dim.
don't be afraid to be abnormal either, and,
Don't be
like,
afraid to find your normal.
yeah, you're natural. I love
Yes.
yeah.
So we're going to pivot. And I mean, we've talked about food, but, and like that familial acceptance. And I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. Um, 1 second. I want you to, I don't remember if you know what you said. When I ask in my form, I ask, what would you like to scream to the world in the past or recently and wish people knew about your grief? Do you remember what you said?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I'll read it to you and you
Okay.
tell me if it would change or if it's what you would say today. I wish people knew that I wasn't weak, soft, or a wussy. um, that I'm strong and my inner world is vast and rich, but my emotions can be fragile. In a grieving period, I like to be as alone as humanly possible, and that doesn't make me strange. It makes me a good steward of my own life force. You don't have to understand me to love me, but always trust that in loving me, you must allow me to make my own decisions about what can help me process and understand my experience. It takes more time and emotional energy than most of the world may allow, but affords me a wealth of experience and empathy that most of the world may never know.
Mm.
I thought that was so beautifully written. And so maybe you wouldn't want to change it, but is there anything you would like to add?
Oh, mama. That was a stirring experience to hear that
Mm,
back, because as if I recall, as I was filling out that application, especially the way that you structured and how your energy is imbued, I felt very free to speak openly about these concepts. And you caught an Amanda that exists underneath like the coaching layer. That kind of took me aback and was really moving. So the only thing that I would add is that I wish this to be the attitude of all HSPs and empaths, that deep down we see the true beauty in who we are, and we see the power of the way that we process, and we see the beauty that we, in our emotional vastness, affords the world. We are like the artists and the feelers and the tender beating heart of humanity, and we should never squash that down, because if we do, then we lose the fight to the robots, and nobody wants that.
mm. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a great segue to a comment I made before we started recording. And in talking about like AI, and I encouraged you to jump on the podcasting bandwagon because I think there's nothing more important now than storytelling. And even, children's books. I've been seeing how people are kind of bucking AI in that way, and how people are really wanting, um I mean, it's through storytelling that we have deep connection, that we find connection with other people. And in that, and written word has energy, right? The written word has energy. And so if everything we're reading doesn't have humanness to it, are we then desensitizing ourselves as a society to what it means to be human? I mean, that's a huge concept. And maybe it's like a download. I don't know. But with so much happening, and especially in the US right now, and how AI is in all aspects of our lives, I think it's in the human connection, the storytelling, rather than the number of characters that one can type. Or I just heard a brilliant idea for, someone shared with me, a good friend shared, there's a subscription where it's a different way. It's like, think book reading, but it's in a letter form, where you're reading, you get a written letter sent to your inbox, and it's like you become invested in this story, and it's in a subscription. I'm like, oh my God, that is genius. Why didn't I think of that? Like, sending people letters, like, and I don't know how the letters are, like, if it's like just, I don't know, like, if is it like handwritten and then just reproduced for people who are subscribers. I'm not sure. I didn't like look deeply into it, but I'm like, that's brilliant. But I just think it's in the storytelling that we see ourselves in other people's stories, that we, I think, can look beyond what someone is projecting and look at them as more human when we know their story, right? It's hard to be angry at someone when we know their story, you know?
Mm.
Did you ever have somebody just ever ask you, what's happened to you?
I have had someone tell me you seem different, which I thought was interesting.
Different as in like the Amanda now, or
Yeah.
different as in as a child or as you were growing up?
The Amanda now versus the one that they knew in the past,
Ah,
which, because I value growth as well, I saw as a sign of a very positive sign
mm-hmm.
of like, yes, I am moving up in the world and, you know, all those things at the time that like career trajectory and all those things were super, super important to me. But I love the idea that we can everything you just said about storytelling is just still rolling around in my head. Because when we ask someone what happened to you, we give them, or maybe in slightly kinder words, maybe, we give them the opportunity to share their story with us. And that creates circles where AI technology just create lines, like there's real connection between people when we tell stories. I was listening to a podcast a while ago and they were talking about the writer's strike, about using AI and ChatGPT in screenwriting. And one of the hosts pointed out that when we view a film that is so, to us, is so perfect, part of what we love about that perfection is that it was created by another human being with the same brain as us, but they access something different. They made something beautiful with their mind. And so I think valuing the imperfection of human experience rather than the productivity and perfection and like cold metal hardness of AI, is valuable. And I like to think, since I learned about digital minimalism, which is basically like being really intentional with what apps you have on your phone, how you use it, etc., making your smartphone dumb, basically. I've become a true believer that I think the pendulum will swing in our lifetime, that everyone will get so anxious and fed up with all of this vast communication networks that the majority of us will actually take a step back, start to align our values with what we do, and we're going to see craftspeople come through, and we're going to see people using the internet for like an hour a day instead of 8 hours a day. And I have a lot of hope for humanity that the things that I value that feel really true to me will start to disseminate in the world, and that there will at least be a few of us who are more like, put your feet in the grass rather than play a game on your phone.
I had a question, because I want to ask, what has been the one grief experience that you think has been the catapult for your glow up, your evolution, like your yeah, the Amanda now.
Oh, yeah. It was the grieving. So when I decided, I got my corporate job and I was about a year and a half in, and I'd gotten to senior level, which was very exciting. And I had always wanted a company to pay for me to travel. And I was traveling. I went to San Francisco for an accounting smart class, which sounds super nerdy, but I freaking loved it. And it was the week of my birthday. And I remember waking up on my birthday and in this really nice hotel in this new city, and just being like, I can't, I can't do this. This isn't my dream. This is the dream of someone else. And at that time, I hired a coach and I started to work on expanding my digital marketing business and like going full ham with that. Because I was so wounded by my previous experience with coaching and what people I loved had said to me, I pushed it off. But it got to a place where I realized that I do want to be a coach for whatever reason. It just pulled to me. It pulled to me. It kept pulling to me. It was the single thread of pull through my life in the past. And I made this 100-slide PowerPoint presentation. I sat my parents down and I walked them through it and explained very rationally and very logically that I was working with a coach and that I wanted to be a coach, and that their love and support had gotten me to this place. And I understand if they don't understand, but this is what I want my career to be. Were they okay with it? I don't know. We've gotten to a good place with it now, but I deeply remember doing that presentation, getting their quote unquote blessing, which was important to me at the time, going up to my room, sinking to my knees and just crying, like crying, crying, crying. And I think that what this was is the grieving of the Amanda that I thought could make my parents proud. My immigrant dad, my hardworking mom whose upbringing was really tough, my family who saw me with so much potential in the corporate world, my friends who I had who didn't understand what coaching was or entrepreneurship, and myself, the version of me that was like, yes, I finally did it. I twisted myself into the pretzel that everyone wanted me to be. And with this decision to be a coach, I untwisted that whole pretzel and I stopped being someone who accepted, someone who was palatable, I guess. And that was hugely grief inducing for me, especially as a highly sensitive person whose goal was to be understood and to feel like she belonged and to feel like she had a place. I had made a place for myself in corporate where I felt respected by my family, by my peers. And it was just the realization kind of clinking into place that I would never be this normal person that I had successfully fooled myself into being. Once I processed that, I looked back a few times, but I didn't look back and I made it my mission to be more in line with my purpose than with anyone else's opinion of me and set boundaries along the way for that. And now I feel like the Amanda in this chair today is the Amanda that my soul has always wanted me to be. Someone who's present and grounded and really changing lives and trusting deeply in herself.
And it sounds like to me that you've aligned your life with your values.
Yes. Yes. With my values,
With
not
your
necessarily
values,
anyone else's values.
which doesn't include people pleasing,
Yeah.
which is what I heard a lot of in what you shared. Because we can do a lot of people pleasing for acceptance as highly sensitive and empathic people.
Mm, that's good. Thank you for reflecting that back. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
What is the best piece of advice did you receive from someone that, as you were kind of going, did you have, first of all, I mean, it's hard to find people, right? Like,
Mm.
because oftentimes the people closest to you who have skin in your game are not the people who are going to be in support of your dreams. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And so I guess my piece of advice for highly sensitive people or empaths and all people in general is to find that person that doesn't have skin in your game, meaning whatever choices or decisions you make will not have a direct impact or effect on them.
Mm.
And so, did you find that for yourself, or what was the most helpful piece of advice or something that you discovered that was really helpful for you in navigating all of that?
Can the advice come from a book?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna have 1,000 books in the description, but this book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle,
Mm.
which is a very good read if you're ready for it. It encourages you to play big in a way that's absolutely awesome. She was an alcoholic. I think she still identifies as an alcoholic, but sober. And in one of her first AA meetings, she shared her story, and some woman came up to her afterwards and was like, "Hey, thank you for sharing your story. I relate to it a lot. I want to tell you that something nobody told me at the beginning is that your feelings are there to be felt, all of them." And Glennon reflects on the fact that she thought only good things were meant to be felt, that the negative emotions were meant to be swept away under the rug and meant to be solved and figured out, but that to fully feel them, that's why a soul floating in the ether chose you to be the human that they inhabit, right? The highs and the lows, the terrible, terrible pain, and the absolutely ecstatic bliss. This is what souls floating in the ether are like. "Oh, I get to be human. Yay." So that had a massive impact on me. And it allowed me, especially as a highly emotional person, to have like an almost cool detachment from my emotions, to want to feel them, to want to be vibrantly in on the game of life, but not let them toss me around to still be the leader in this time of grief.
I love that. Yes, another resource for the show notes. Now, I can tell you're probably much younger than me.
Mm.
And so you're probably in the throes. Well, you have a boyfriend, you stated, but you've been in the dating game, of course, as a
Oh, girl.
yeah. So can you just reflect a little bit on that experience as a from the perspective of a highly sensitive, empathic person in finding your match?
Mm. Oh, yeah. I love this story. Okay. So I have a long history with dating apps in today's day and age. I would come to them and then flood them and then leave, basically. And I did this a few times before I decided really intentionally a few summers ago, maybe four years ago, that I wanted to be intentional and I wanted to set that boundary and I wanted to only go on dates. Like I wanted to stay open, but only go on dates that I felt like I could have a real connection with, not just someone who was very attractive. And that led me to what's fun about highly sensitive people. They're often very intelligent and ambitious. And my ambition, I was like, I'm going to write a blog post about going on 10 dates in 4 weeks, and then I'm going to be famous. And so I set up all these dates and I went on most of them. And all these guys were great. I could see them being a match. But by the sixth date, I was like, oh gosh, I don't feel good. And I was feeling burnt out by the experience. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll never be famous for this. And I deleted the app. And my boyfriend and I met through a blind date through my mom. And blind dates, especially through moms,
Yes.
are super uncommon nowadays. But
Yeah.
I had decided after that whole summer of love or whatever that I was just going to focus on my relationship with myself, as absolutely corny as that sounds. And it was when I wasn't looking for a relationship that my mom texted me and was like, if I set you up on a blind date, will you go? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Just tell me when and where.
And you trusted
And
her. Can I just
oh,
say
I trusted her. Yeah, yeah. Oh, my mom's the coolest. Of course I trust her. But maybe other moms might be a little crazy, but
that?
um we I went on this date not expecting a lot. I looked him up on Facebook. He didn't look me up. He didn't know what to expect, but I couldn't handle the tension of not knowing. And we went on this date and it was fine. We talked for a while. I remember the waiter we both ordered two sushi rolls, and on our plates, they had put one of his sushi rolls and one of mine, and on his plate, one of his and one of mine. And I distinctly remember me finishing my side on my plate and waiting, being polite and like first datey and being like, oh, maybe he'll notice that I have his roll or whatever. Immediately, he was like, hey, give me your plate. What's going on here? And I was like, oh, interesting. He anticipated my needs. Hmm. But it was fine. Like I didn't feel an instant connection. And I got in the car to drive home and my intuition was like, you're gonna go on a second date. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then by the fourth date, my intuition was like, yeah, this guy's really good for you. This is the one. And this came from someone who was,
The one.
yes, 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 crazy. Because we didn't have a lot in common. I always pictured myself with someone highly entrepreneurial who would vibe with me on an intellectual level and we'd have all these conversations, whatever. But he's like just this Irish boy that I can speak to from an energetic perspective no one has made me feel more secure or grounded in my energy. And I felt very early on that my inner child was welcome to come out to play with him in a way that had never happened with these like highly intellectual men that I had been dating. I think if someone's on the dating scene now who is an empath and highly sensitive, I recommend what I did because of the digital minimalism thing is I would delete the app during the day. So I wouldn't be tempted to check it. And that really helped me establish good boundaries of like, this is not my entire life. I don't need to be stuck doom scrolling through these guys. And that helped me just do an automatic barrier between my energy and theirs. And then I didn't do a very good job of this, but something I would tell someone is to really like mitigate your energy on a first date because you are trying so hard to be so smiley and attractive and like suss them out. They're trying to suss you out. So my recommendation is to set it at like an hour and then leave and then see how you feel and if you want to do a second date.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
And also, maybe before you even open the app, make sure that your energy is aligned with finding someone who is
Ooh.
aligned with you rather than this desperate, I
Oh,
need a someone in my life energy, right? Like, because you're going to attract someone very different depending on your energy, right? Like you're going to be looking for different things based on like, no, I'm coming into this. I want someone who can match me in this
mm,
energy that I am in now, who values growth and, has that forethought vibe about themselves where they're grounded in the present moment, but still are like this visionary person or whatever it is you're looking for, right?
yeah.
Um, I think that's equally important to go into it with the energy of what you're trying to match with and whom you're
Mm,
trying to match with, I should say.
that's good advice too. I
I
like this.
also heard
Yeah, go ahead.
I also heard through, I love the radio show Brooke and Jeffrey in the morning. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Spotify. They do second date updates. They do like, there's been some really funny stories on there. It's my daily dose of humor and laugh out louding to myself. But anyway, one of the things that I've learned, I'm not in the dating world. I haven't been for like over 20 years. And I couldn't imagine being in the dating world today, which is why I wanted for you to share. Um, but one of the things that someone had talked about was they had because the dating apps can be exhausting and for like all the reasons you said. And they have what some women are doing now is they're having like these dating app parties with their girlfriends, and their girlfriends are choosing who they go on a date with. How
Ooh.
fun does that sound?
I
Right? Like you're
love that.
trusting the people closest to you to find a match for you rather than your own ego and your own like getting all in your head and all of that. The people that know you the best, right? And so that's why I think like no one knows their child better, or no one knows you better than you know yourself, number one. But secondly, if you are all, if you can't get the emotion out of it, that's, you, especially if you're an emotional, right? You got to ride the emotional wave. And sometimes that can take weeks and, you know what I mean? So you kind of need some support in that way, like someone who can be objective, right? And so that's
Oh,
why I think that's a great idea potentially for highly sensitive, empathic people. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there too.
I love that because then you're not a lot of the time if we see someone very attractive and very well matched for us, we're gonna talk ourselves down from it. But
Mm-hmm.
your friend, your BFF is gonna be like, "Oh, totally. I see this, this, and this in you that would make them a really great match." So I think it gets you out of
Mm-hmm.
your head in a really good way.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel like you didn't get to share, um, that you would like to share?
Only thing that comes to mind is when you are grieving, use your voice. I don't really know what it means, but I like it.
That is good advice because so many of us grieve alone. And
Mm,
especially as empaths and highly sensitive people, it can be very easy to um, get to a point where, especially as children, children have no filter. Children show us, I mean, as babies, we cry, right? That's all, that's our language. We cry. And the longer we are in society and we grow up and we're around people who don't even cry, we don't even cry anymore. We get to a point where we don't even cry. And as this, I think a highly sensitive person, an empath, I think that is our love language for ourselves. That's the love we can give to ourselves, is to allow ourselves to cry.
mm,
Because I know for myself, um, I was taught to, if and not just highly sensitive people and empaths alone, but it's one of the things that many people will say, like as a child, you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. You want to
mm,
cry, go to your room. I was told that as a child, and I did. And to the point where I would fall asleep under my bed. Like I didn't just go on top of my bed to cry, I went underneath my bed. I went into the linen closet. I would hide to cry. The kitchen cupboard, I hid to cry. One time they even sent a search party out. That's the time I was in the linen closet. They didn't know where I was. And I reflect on that as an adult and doing the work, the personal development work, and going through grief recovery myself. I cried. It was like the dam broke, and 30 plus years of tears came out, and I left that experience a different person than I went in. And that's when I started to use my voice. It's like the tears that were so bottled up, it was like they were choking me,
mm,
you know?
mm.
And I think that's what grief does too to us. It, especially as a highly sensitive person or empathic person, it like just tangles everything up. And you just got to start pulling the thread.
And I love that you said it's centralized. You made emotion at your neck. And that's the throat chakra.
Mm-hmm.
Connection between the head and the body. I think it makes us so in our minds and maybe so surprised when our body finally shows up and has these retching sobs coming through us. But if we can get into the practice of using our voices when we're grieving, I think it allows us to heal mind and body together through that connection.
Let me ask you this. So I think one of the greatest gifts I gave to myself was, because I always thought something was wrong with me, as you did too. You expressed that, like you feel like you're different. You're different. You feel like I was the kid ordering palm reading books from the Scholastic in elementary school, and my friends were ordering like books to read or comic books or whatever it was. And here I'm reading, like ordering palm reading books. And I collected stickers and, you know, yeah, the weirdo, right? And actually, someone in my graduating class, on the back of his senior picture he gave me, he even stated that, like, you were weird, but, good luck to you or something. I didn't remember exactly, but he called me weird. My kids have called me weird, but I look at it now, or I feel like, you know what? I'm going to let my let weird flag fly. And I've definitely learned how to embrace it. But I was looking for anything and everything to discover and learn about myself, because it's like I was so disconnected from, and because a lot of that had to do with my grief and trauma growing up, but and things I experienced early on in my life, but to really connect with the child within me, right? And I remember, like, because I was like, I have simian lines on both
Mm.
hands.
Ooh, I don't.
Yeah,
Wow.
so this is all like head and heart, so confused, like head and heart, like, yeah.
So
I'm like,
cool.
okay, well, that, explains my indecisiveness and my emotional roller coaster I'm constantly on. And then in the last 5 years, since going through grief recovery and stuff, I discovered UMAP and Clifton Strengths, Gallup Clifton Strengths and stuff. And here I have like all mostly thinking themes. Well, okay, no wonder. So it's
Uh-huh.
like all of these little pieces and just and then human design, like all these tools and little pieces of knowledge that I've picked up along the way have really helped me get to where I'm at now, to and understand. I have this gnat. I love plants, and then they come with gnats and they drive me
Yeah.
crazy. So, but no, I think any little piece that we can find to help us better understand ourselves gets us one step closer to really embracing our uniqueness. And so I guess you mentioned self-help books, but were there any tools and things that you feel like have really been pivotal in helping you embracing your uniqueness?
Mm. The big thing that comes to mind is actually human design.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been like a real game changer. And then not to be biased, but having a coach
Hmm.
has been there's a very distinct difference between who I was before I worked with a coach and who I am now. Just in terms of what I truly believe is possible for myself is so highly elevated that it's like I kind of thought I could be this person, but I didn't really know until I was consistently pushed to my limits and had different perspectives and mentorship offered to me. I don't think I could have done it just with human design or just with books. I think I needed that one on one relationship with a mentor, a coach, someone that knows how to help you excel. Been a huge modality for me.
Like my dear friend says, you can't see the label from inside the jar.
Ooh. You can't see the cover from inside the book. That's what came to mind.
Yeah,
Love that. Your friend is very wise. They should be on the podcast.
she has been.
Oh,
Early on.
love it.
Yep, early on when I started. Um,
What was
Thank
it for
you so
you?
much. Oh, what's that?
What was it for you?
Um, well, if I would say um, most recently it would be human design in the past year. Um, just in really understanding my manifestor energy. But what unlocked my life and my grief was grief recovery, was going through that experience and doing that really deep work, that I still continue to do. It's, I'm a work in progress. We all are, always. Um, and so yeah, and also coaching. Like I've had my own coaches, um, and that's an investment in yourself. I had my grief. I have a client right now, and she asked me a really insightful question. I made a note of it. Oh, excuse me. But she asked me, like, how is the grief recovery method, or how is the program that she's in different from therapy, and wanted me to explain it.
Mm.
And what came up for me was this theme that you and I have been sharing this whole time is storytelling.
Mm.
And I think that's what really sets grief recovery apart, is that because in the work that I do with clients, I always go first. I share first. And I think that is just, it's disarming for the other person. It's how we connect with each other. It's how I connect with my guests when they're on this podcast. It's this back and forth. It's this um, in communion with our life experience, right? It's a breaking of bread of our grief, so to speak. I think that's why this podcast works. At least I think it does. I mean, the stats are showing it does. Um, and, you know, sometimes with therapy or therapists, people who are, you know, like psychotherapists or psychiatrists, and that's, I think, the missing piece is that there's this barrier that's kind of put up. And she expressed this herself. She's like, there's this wall almost
Mm.
because the therapist is not sharing anything from their lives. And of course, they have, you know, there's, I suppose, boundary of practice, right? Like, you don't want to get too close to your patients or clients or whatever the case may be. And I think that's the beautiful gift, though, of grief recovery, is that that doesn't exist. That wall doesn't exist.
Oh, that's so beautiful because you make them feel safe, but I think especially amplified by your highly sensitive nature and your empath powers are coming through in the perfect way that really is your purpose. And so tactically, it makes a lot of sense that you would go first. But when you do, Victoria, it's like this lightning bolt of safety that is created, like raindrops on a window almost, because you have that superpower of empathy and that gift of being with others.
And have you shared that with your clients?
Hmm. The coaching that I do, the clients come to me to learn things about business strategy, about manifestation wisdom, about mindset mastery. And while I feel a kinship with my clients, I feel more like a teacher who's leading,
Mm.
which I think works. There's a certain amount of self disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
especially with me because I'm a very Instagram focused in my marketing. So my day is, I invite people to my day. But I think that they come to me because they see something in me that they want for themselves or that they feel is a part of their journey, rather than being in a place of, I'm experiencing this deeply sensitive time. How do I move through it with someone next to me? Right? It's like that maybe cliched now thing of like there's two footprints on the beach and
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is carrying you on his back. I think I'm more sitting across from my clients, standing in what is possible, which you are as well. But I wonder what it would look like for my practice if I were able to. I think the nature of our work, you and I, allows empathy, empathness, and high sensitivity to blossom in two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're both flowers, but just of a different shade. Like how your eyebrows are cousins, not twins.
Yeah.
Like we're cousins, not twins.
No, that's beautiful. I just, because the work that you do and this question that she posed last night, it's just kind of stuck with me. And um, I just kind of wanted to get what your thoughts were on that. Yeah.
Someone just today actually said that we were talking about how coaching is different than therapy. And my view is that therapy can be very past focused, like
Mm.
very focused on the past and the present. And I think that coaching, at least the kind that I do, is very much focused on goals in the future and being embodied in the present, and like these concepts that, because the therapist has that active self-disclosure, they they might not talk spirituality with you or human design or business strategy, right? They're there to be a therapeutic outlet. Whereas I like to think that after a coaching session, at least this is me with my coach, and from what I can tell, my clients with me, it's like I feel like a superhero. Like I just plugged into a 500-watt amp and I feel clear and ready to go make shit happen.
Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like, I want those people who want that for themselves, who are ready to open their lives up to that. But let's look at the past so that we don't
Mm.
repeat it. Let's become empowered by our past. Let's look at our past with a new perspective so that we're not pulling it and dragging it with us into our future.
And that work that you do is ultimately such a strong foundation for the work that I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, damn, you are so well regulated. You know your shit. Let's just springboard and see where you can go. Whereas someone who might not have that grip on the past, more time is taken to dissect and to go back.
So
I see what
imagine now. If I just referred people on to you after they've worked with me.
oh my gosh. It's a match made in heaven. It's a match made
Vice
in
versa, if people come to you and you're like, well, I think we need to look at your foundation first. Maybe you should talk to Victoria.
heaven.
You're not quite ready.
Yes.
No, this has been amazing. Um, I loved our conversation. I hope the listeners can feel our dancing of energy because I feel it. And you feel like a kindred spirit. You're like the blonde version of my very beautiful friend. And she's a redhead. And actually, your hair is really similar too. She's got this beautiful, full red hair that I've been envious of forever. But yeah.
So cool. I felt the same. This was such a good conversation. I feel like we were talking and then our antennas were also talking to,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
we can
Yes.
have some good stuff.
We are a vibe together.
Unstoppable.
Well, where can people reach you if they would like to learn more about your work and what you do and your awesomeness and your beautiful golden energy?
So it's on my website at amandapopovski.com, and then Instagram at Amanda Popovski. If you have trouble spelling it, it's okay. It's in the title of the podcast. But those are my main two places. That's where I've been hanging out and where I'm announcing new programs and things. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share that.
And I will put the links in the show notes.
Yay.
And thank you so much for this beautiful conversation today.
It's been a gift. Thank you.
And remember, when you unleash your heart, you unleash your life. Much love. Oh, hold on. Where's stop? Okay. Where's stop? Stop recording.